Live on the radio, and my name is Shannon Poe, and I'm the president of American Mining Rights Association. And I want to thank everybody for being here, and I want to thank everybody that's out there listening to this. I think everybody knows that we face some pretty significant challenges. And for those of you that have seen me speak before, I don't really follow a script. And so this is difficult for me to do a PowerPoint so you guys can follow along. But anyway, we've got a lot of things to cover here. I want to introduce the speakers that we have, and then we're going to go through, there's four separate segments that we're going to talk about. I'll do an opener, and then we're going to get into some suction dredge science and facts. And we have Joe Green here, who is retired from the EPA, as well as Claudia Wise back here. And Joe has dedicated basically a significant portion of the last couple of decades to dispel the lies and propaganda that seem to be put out by the opposition to small mining. And he's going to do a presentation today that's really going to open up some eyes. For all of those listening out there, this is broadcast live on goldprospectorspace.com, and as well as this will be in archives. So after the close of this broadcast, I believe it's as soon as maybe tonight or even tomorrow, anybody can go back and listen. All they have to do is go to goldprospectorspace.com and click on that archive link, and you can listen to the meeting in its entirety. We're also filming this, so each of the four segments we are going to put out onto YouTube. So anybody can come and they can actually watch the meeting in the YouTube archives. So the other member that we've got up here is Robert Guardiola. He's the president of Delta Gold Diggers. It's a GPAA chapter. And Robert is as much responsible for coming up with the idea of this meeting as anybody. I think we started talking about it
a couple years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And I'm really glad I met the guy. He's very intelligent, and he is a significant contributor. So we've got some groups here today, guys, that a couple of things that we really need to recognize. And first and foremost, I think, is with PLP. I know we've got Walt and Ron here today. You know, with the passing of Jerry dedicated his entire life, really, to fighting for mining rights. And Jerry was a good friend of mine, obviously not nearly as close as he was to these other gentlemen, but PLP should be recognized. The same thing with WMA is here, Western Mining Alliance. Probably some of the best, if not the best, writers and researchers in the industry. We've got the new 49ers, and several of them here as well. Financially, I think, and with the litigation and James Buechel, the new 49ers have done an awful lot to help fight for mining rights. Obviously, AMRA, we're kind of haven't been around nearly as long as the new 49ers or PLP, but we're certainly getting recognized on the stage. And the other one is the GPAA. I know that the GPAA doesn't have a staff of attorneys or anything like that to go out and fight for mining rights, but I'll tell you, we formed some partnerships recently with the GPAA, and Brandon Johnson, the president, sent out an email blitz to a lot of the listeners on the radio program today, to their people, because they are concerned about mining rights. So we need to recognize them in really joining in this fight. So anyway, with that, let's get going. We've got a lot of things to cover, and I want to make sure that we get through it. Like I say, if you've got any questions, try to remember those, and when we get towards the end of the segment here, we'll address those. We want to try to stay on schedule today. So anyway, let's get to it. Let me ask you guys a question. How many think that the direction that our country is going right now is the right direction? No hands. You know, in my lifetime, I never thought that I would see something like this. with so many different regulatory agencies that are basically creating law. Congress has basically given up their power to these regulatory agencies. And we're going to talk about some of these. So what do we do? I'm asking, what do we do? Throw it out there.
Fight for our rights.
You
Talk
know-
to your congressman.
Fight for your rights. Talk to your congressman.
Use your local media.
Do you think that the congressmen listen?
Yep.
No.
You go talk to them personally.
We just had a meeting with Congressman McClintock 3 days ago, and they'll listen as long as they know, and I'm not trying to disparage Congressman McClintock, he's actually on our side, but especially politicians are really good about saying things that you want to hear. But we're not a democracy, we're a representative republic. And we elect people to represent us. They go to Washington, D.C., they pass laws that are supposed to be in the interest of the public, you. And it seems like whoever has the most money or can influence them with the most money with re-election campaigns and things like that, and has the loudest voice, that's really what seems to get their attention. The problem that we have, guys, is it's not that WMA or PLP or the new 49ers or AMRA or ICMJ or whoever it is not effective, because they really are. The problem is we don't have people engaged. And if you look at our opposition, they're organized. We have a president that used to be a community organizer. So if you take that into consideration, we're going to talk about why they're so successful and we're not. And we believe that we've came up with, using all of the heads of all of these people, a solution that we can change that. And that's really what the goal is here. Guys, if we don't do something and do something now, what do you think is going to happen to the small miner? Every single day you see attack. Whether it be Montana, Colorado, Washington. Thankfully, that bill just got shot down just a couple of days ago, but that took a major concerted effort. We have to get even more organized to stop this stuff. So I want to go through, first of all, what this meeting is not about. This is not about AMRA. It's not about PLP. It's not about WMA, New 49ers, ICMJ, GPAA. This meeting is not going to promote anyone's business, period. We just absolutely will not do that today. It's not a sales pitch for anything. If anybody's interested in learning something about ICMJ or whoever it is, then get with the person that's here representing that company. This isn't to air disputes between other mining entities. So if I have a big complaint with Scott at the Mining Journal, this is not the forum to do that. Okay? We're not going to ask for money, and we're not going to attack any political party. I think we all know who our opposition is, but I got to be honest, I want to tell you something. We're not, as far as AMRA goes, we're not Republicans and we're not Democrats, because I got to be frank here. I can't really identify with either party anymore. So we're just Americans, and we're very, very concerned with the direction of our country. So that's what the meeting is not about. This meeting is about establishing an emergency communication network. And I want to talk about that for a second. So how have we relied on getting the information out there? You guys probably aware that down in the Cleveland National Forest right now, they're trying to close a giant swath down there. The Forest Service can just now say, I'm closing this. They put it out on what's called the Federal Register. They open it up for public comment, and it's up to us to tell them no. And unless they receive more comments in opposition than they do in favor, then they will close your public lands. That's how it works. So, how do we communicate? Let's say that, and I'm going to pick on Joe here, my friend from GPAA. Let's say that Joe stumbles across this article on the internet. So what does he typically do? Joe will get on his internet, He'll pull up his email and he'll go, I'm gonna copy this link and I'm gonna send it to Tony. And then Tony forwards it over to Jeff and to Clem and Bill and everybody else. And let's say that it's a really critical situation that we need to respond to. If that's the case, then how long does it take to reach me? I'll give you an example. The Bryden Reinhardt decision here in California, by the time I was notified via email that we had to respond and write letters to the California Supreme Court not to depublish this, or to Judge Ochoa, it was 6 days after that article and that had been published. I had 1 day to respond, and it was impossible for me to do that. So my voice didn't get heard. But that's really how we rely on information and communication, right? You think we could do better than that?
Yes.
I agree. So that's kind of the purpose, and we're going to get into that in just a second. The second thing that we're here to do, and this is something that Joe's going to cover at length, is we're going to provide the truth, the facts, the science behind suction dredging. We're going to talk about some of the hypocrisy from our opposition on this, because really what they're putting out there is propaganda and it's lies. So how many people in this room have ever seen one study? Just tell me one. Provide a link of one study ever that proves that suction dredging has hurt even one fish. You have one? No, because there isn't one. But you know what? We've got 20 studies that have been done by accredited scientists, fisheries biologists, retired EPA biologists, Claudia, all these other different entities that prove conclusively that we don't hurt fish. We have to do a better job at fighting this propaganda, guys. You've got to engage your people to dispel these lies, because the public perception out there is that for some reason they think a dredge is some kind of a giant spinning turbine fish grinding thing that just dumps pollution into the river, and nothing could be further from the truth. So we have to engage this. Does that make sense? Okay. We're going to educate the small mining community and the land rights users on what their rights are. We're going to talk about a website here coming up in the latter part of the meeting today. We had worked on, and I know Johnny here knows, I spent 3 weeks, guys, on the computer drafting up what was going to be labeled basically a small miner's Bible. And it was information from a lot of different sources. I stole stuff from Scott at the Mining Journal, the WMA guys, New 49ers, a lot of stuff, GPA. Anyway, all of these different people contributed to this. And we were going to put this publication together. And then a couple of weeks ago, we decided to halt that. We still may end up doing it, but we have a new resource for you that is going to basically answer those questions. The thing about it is this, there's a few people in this room, forever, or a Scott Harn. These guys have more in their head knowledge about what mining rights are than probably most of us combined. What we need to do as leaders in the small mining industry is to educate not just the people in this room, but every small miner on what their rights are. I don't know, I imagine Walt probably gets an email every single day like I do of, you know, the Forest Service is telling me I can't access my mining claim, they put up a gate. Well, you have fundamental rights. And so that's something that we basically have failed you, in my opinion, and it's something that we intend to change. You guys should be able to quote exactly what RS 2477 is, or the USFS 2813.14 that states that they cannot cause an undue burden for you to access your mining claim. That's something you guys should be able to go to a resource, pull it up, and answer these questions. Do you need a permit to run a high bank or water pump on your federal mining claim? You know, all of these kind of things, that's something that we fundamentally will change for you, and I give you my word on that. We need to educate you. You guys need to educate your people. Do you agree with that?
Sure.
Okay. The last thing is we're going to talk about the solutions, and it primarily has to do with the communication aspect that we need to get better with. So this meeting here, and we have people listening from all over the country, is about California. Washington is under attack. Oregon is under attack. Arizona. We have, and John can attest to this, we get more calls for some reason out of Montana. What the heck is going on with Montana and the Forest Service? Guys, it's out of control. I mean, seriously, we probably get a phone call and an email every other day that the Forest Service is just locking and blocking and gating and withdrawing this section and that section, and you can't have this mining claim. They've even gone so far as, I'll give you an example, is just a couple of days ago we got a call from a gentleman that the Forest Service actually went and built a fence on his claim that encircles his entire 20-acre claim. He went in and cut the fence down with a chainsaw so he could get to his mine shaft, and they arrested him, and he's being charged with a felony crime of destruction of federal property. I kid you not. So what the hell is this country coming to? So anyway, we're rolling it out here in California. We're hoping that you guys will give us some input after this meeting on how we can make it better, because we need to get up to Washington, we need to go over to Idaho, and we need to unite those states as well and do the same thing there. This is a grassroots movement, guys, that we're going to dedicate basically our lives for the next 2 years in uniting everybody, because it's something that's long overdue. So make sure that you give us some feedback. There's 19 western states that you can file federal mining claims in, and that's what we're going to focus on. And over the next couple of years, we hope to hit every single one of them. So I'm going to take a dredge when I go to Alaska. So you ever wonder why the opposition is so successful? I found this gentleman on the internet this morning, and I'll read the quote here for those listening on the radio. It's a guy holding a sign here, and it says, "I always wondered why somebody didn't do something about that. Then I realized I was somebody." It's one thing to complain, and I think that we're all really good at that. And I'm probably the biggest person that did that. I complained. I chucked money at PLP. I chucked money at Dave McCracken, going, "Save me, save me." I owned a bunch of dredges in the mid 2000s, and that's all I did is I dredged. I kept to myself, and when the moratorium hit, it devastated me. I was mad, but all I did was complain and throw money, thinking, "Oh, you know what? They're going to save me." They couldn't, because you know why? Because we didn't unite in opposition against this. Do you think that if we would have had, imagine this, when the moratorium passed in 2008, do you think that if we had 25,000 people that showed up on the state capitol and protested that day, you think that would have made a difference?
Yep.
Yeah, it would have, but we didn't do that. The sad part about it is, and I don't know what the actual statistics are, WMA has these numbers, but I don't know how many mining claim owners in the state of California and how many miners they are, but I would imagine it's a couple of 100,000 people. And if we could get these people off their butts instead of just complaining and actually do something, can you imagine the force that we would have? Do you think we could sway politicians? The only thing that gets politicians' ears and eyes and gets action is the sheer volume of people. If you overwhelm them with opposition, they have to listen. Most of the time, although I think that our argument could be made that in some state instances right now that's not the case. But so I was guilty of this back in 2008. I complained. I never wrote a letter. I never picked up a phone and called a congressman. I didn't do anything. All I did was complain to all my fellow miners. Sound familiar? It's what your people do. It's what they do right now. You've got a handful that probably do write letters. You guys have to change that. It has to change. Do you understand the urgency of this? Do you guys really get that? I know that Ron does. I know that Walt does. I do. I know Johnny does. Guys, unless we engage these people, nothing's going to change, ever. We're going to be a small voice. And that's just sad. So, what we've done in the past doesn't work. So what's a call to action? First of all, we got to kind of determine what is a critical incident. And I'm going to use this example of the Cleveland National Forest because it's just something that was this week. Is the National Forest has decided to close a whole bunch of land in the Cleveland National Forest. Where's that at? San Diego or?
Yeah, down San Diego.
San Diego. If you have to communicate with the Forest Service in opposition, now granted, let's say that they receive 1,000 letters. We have to send in 501 letters in opposition to 499 letters in favor. Make sense? Majority, simple majority rule. If we actually mobilized everybody to write letters and contact these people, we could overwhelm them and shut this kind of thing down. The problem is that most of the time, somebody will just post a link of the story that says, oh, they're closing these forest lands, and that's it. What we're going to try to do is establish a protocol that makes it so easy for them that it is literally only going to take 2 minutes of their time. But it's you guys that have to convince them to actually spend that 2 minutes. So what do we do in the past? Well, we send out a link, and you hope that somebody clicks on it. They actually get motivated to do something. And let's say that it hits 50 people. Of those 50 people, you'll be lucky if 1 or 2 actually write a letter. Right? You guys agree with that? So, how does this work? We have a website that Robert has created, and it's not affiliated with AMRA, GPA, WMA, PLP, ICMJ, anybody. It's just a website. It's a .org website, and it's called write2mine.org. Write2mine.org. So every single person listening on the radio right now that's a miner or a public land user that's frustrated and fed up, and if they see something that, let's use this same example of the Cleveland National Forest, they're closing it. They see this article, they can go out to write2mine.org and they can click contact us. That's going to send an email, and they can copy and paste whatever article or whatever they read or whatever it is that they've heard or whatever it is. That email, when they hit send, that's going to go to the leaders of basically that is in the state of California, and that's the new 49ers, WMA, PLP, AMRA, ICMJ, and Robert. There we go. I knew there were 6. So what we will do is we are now going to communicate, us 6, and determine, okay, here's what we've got. This thing is a pretty critical situation. We need to mobilize this. So today, all of you who are the leaders in the state of California, we've got your email addresses. We're going to be building that database as well. So what we'll do is we'll decide, okay, hey, this is an emergency situation we need to respond to. AMRA is going to take the lead on this, and we will actually draft up a form letter, just like our opposition does, that all you have to do is fill in the blanks. So if it's Doug here, he gets an email from whoever it is. Let's say it's Joe from East Bay Prospector sending it out. Doug's going to get an email that says, hey, here's this situation. Forest Service is trying to close the Cleveland National Forest. We need to write letters in opposition. By the way, here's a form letter that you can use. Fill in your name here, fill in your opposition here, and click send, or click print and put a stamp on it and mail it. Or here's the phone number of what we want you to say, call in opposition. We can't make it any easier than that. The thing that has to be done is you guys have got to get your people engaged. Will you give us a promise that you will?
You got it.
We can't make it any easier than that. And, you know, I appreciate these guys' support in jumping on this. We'll spend the extra time to create the form letters. We got to do something here, guys, or we're going to lose this. I know he knows it personally. Good God, I own, how many dredges do we own, John? 9? I want to use these dredges. I want to mine. I want to be able to go camp on public lands. So, that's how it works. And if you really start to look at this, that's you. That's just a little miner. We're showing a flow chart on the screen here. So you go out to rightomine.org and you say, hey, here's the issue. You click send, that goes to us. We send it to about 150 people initially. And like I say, that database is going to grow and grow and grow. And then they send it to 1,000 people. Then they send it to 1,000 people or 5,000. And pretty soon, as opposed to the way that we've done it in the past where it takes a week to get an email in your inbox, we can reach 100,000 people, we feel, in about 24 hours. Now we're starting to do something, but we've got, again, to get them engaged. They've got to actually get off their butts and do something. You know, and Robert brought something up, I think it was Robert, that somebody else. Anyway, they had a chapter meeting or a club meeting, and it was specifically about letter writing. Is they actually opened up their meeting, and all of the members sat down. Maybe it was.
We're going to do this.
Oh, he's going to do it. Sure. Anyway, they're opening up their meeting with that. Is everybody that attends the meeting sits down and writes letters in opposition. I love that idea. That's a great idea, because then you're actually assuring it. And then you can make Robert pay for the stamps. So that's a great idea. Think outside the box, guys, of how you can get these people engaged. Okay? So I think that this is going to be pretty good, pretty big. Now imagine this. I just got to make sure we're still live here. Hang on. We're good. So imagine this. So we're here in California. Let's say that next month or in a month and a half we're in Washington. Then we go to Idaho. Then we go to Montana. Then we go to Oregon. And we start linking all of this stuff together, and we start having this communication network for all the states. Can you imagine what a national force this would become? And I like to use this analogy of the NRA. Jeff and I have sat many times talking about the NRA. Jeff from Proline is the NRA started relatively small, and what have they become now? They've become the largest national voice for the Second Amendment in the United States. Government and politicians fear the NRA. It's because they're mobilized, because they're organized, because they're really good at communication. We can do the same thing. It's not that hard to create. It just takes effort, and it takes people getting engaged. We're going to do that. I always lose the remote. Ask my wife. So let's talk about rights versus privilege. By the way, I didn't even know this until I saw the slide, because I have a whole bunch of pictures of our mining claim signs, and this just happened to be a claim that PLP had donated to us. So thank you all. So what's the difference between a right and privilege? We've got some gentlemen here that aren't even actually miners. They're hound hunters. And we went and spoke with their group in Modesto about a month and a half ago. And they like to go up into the mountains and take their dogs and run them, and it's perfectly legal. They like to use public lands, and they've been harassed by the USFS. Now there's a fundamental difference between a mining claim owner and somebody that likes to run their hounds, or hunt, or fish, or hike, or camp, they actually have what's called a privilege in using our right. It's recognized as real property. We have a right of access. We have riparian rights here in California. And there's a huge difference. In 1866 and in 1872, they passed a law, and it is the Mining Act. And it was ratified, I think where's Clark at? I think 1906, 1904, about then, wasn't it?
Well, it was recognized by Congress when it was passed in 1866.
Okay, well, 1866. So what that did is it established a right of access, the same things that we just talked about. And meaning that we pay property taxes on federal mining claims. So it's just like if you bought a house, you own the property rights. Doesn't mean you can build a house on a mining claim. Good God, can you imagine what it would take to get a permit and stuff to do that? But it gives you a right as opposed to a privilege like the hound hunters and the fishermen and stuff like that. The government, because they've usurped so much of their power to these regulatory agencies, that they can regulate if you have a privilege, and they can close the roads, like what we're seeing with this atrocious travel management plan. I'm just going to take the Stanislaus National Forest right now, which is Mariposa and Tuolumne County predominantly. I took a map about 2.5 to 3 years ago when this travel management plan was really being instituted by the USFS, and I took a map of, okay, here's what happens in the summer when a lot of the roads are open, and then from December 15th to April 15th, I compared that, which is when all of these closures take effect. 71% of the roads were closed. Who owns public lands?
We do.
The public. What is the USFS? Public entity. Who pays their wages?
We do.
The public. You do. You think that they forget that they work for us, or they just don't care? It's probably a little bit of both. Yeah, I think that we found both, and we're going to talk about that. But that's the fundamental difference between a right or a privilege. Everybody else other than basically a real property owner that owns a house and real property, or a mining claim owner, has a privilege to access the lands, the public lands.
Prospectors are also included in that under the mining law.
Yes, the question or the comment was made that prospectors are also included. There's a lot of debate on this topic of lands open to mineral entry, and we have our attorney Paul Bunk here, and Paul and I have had many discussions over this. You guys know me, I'm a little more of the rogue type of guy that likes to push the envelope a little bit. Paul is a very intelligent, highly educated, and an exceptionally good attorney that kind of knocks me upside the head at times and goes, you need to think about this. Because what I want to do is there's a particular creek up in the South Motherlode that I've wanted to go to, as Johnny knows, for 2 years. The roads have been closed. The rim fire happened, and then the travel management plan closure. The day that they decided to open all the roads, 1.5 years after the rim fire, was the same day that the travel management plan kicked in, so we can't get in there until April 15th. We have pictures of us standing in front of the gate that we want to go in. That's land that's open to mineral entry. Under the law, in my understanding, is lands open to mineral entry, you should be able to go in and prospect that with the intent to pick up a mining claim. That's what the whole law was intended to do. But then you've got this gate in front of you that's threatening to put you in jail. So, of course, Shannon being Shannon, I want to knock the damn gate down, and I want to go in and mine this creek because I feel I have a fundamental right as a professional miner to be able to go and access that land. The Forest Service fundamentally says absolutely no, and that they will arrest me. So, and Even my wife is in opposition to this because she doesn't want to bail me out of jail. So I think that it's these kind of things that really need to be challenged. But you know, guys, the thing about it is how much money have we spent in litigation just to try to retain our rights in the last 15, 20, 30 years? It's millions, tens of millions of dollars have been spent. It's not just the mining community, it's the public land use community too. So what if the hound hunters wanted all of a sudden decide that they want to go prospect a creek? Do they get eliminated? See, that's the thing, is I think some of these things need to be challenged. And I don't have a problem going to jail, as long as I don't get stuck in there with him. So, tase him, don't tase me. So, does it make sense about the difference between a right and a privilege? We're going to be posting more of this information and really go into depth with this, because this publication that I was talking about that we want to give to you guys, specifically, we'll talk about that. We'll put it in layman's terms so you can understand it. But then we're also going to include case history like Shumway, U.S. versus Hicks, which fundamentally address this issue either in the 8th Circuit, the 9th Circuit, or whatever Supreme Court case or whatever it is. So that's something that we're working on as well. That's a taser on a hip of some law enforcement person. And I know a lot of you guys here in this room are aware of what happened. But I'm going to give you a brief Reader's Digest version. We have had 2 members, actually 3 AMRA members were on a validly held federal mining claim about 2 months ago in the South Mother Lode in Mariposa County. They were all in their 60s, a man and his wife, and another man in his 60s, both honorably discharged military vets, which, by the way, I forgot to thank you from the bottom of our heart for all of the people that have served in our military. Thank you. So these guys are sitting in the creek. One guy, the guy with his wife, they were running a little tiny sluice box. The other guy, which is kind of hung out with me for a couple of months and is a little obstinate, he was sitting in the creek also running a little sluice box. And they were legally parked, like I say, on a validly held mining claim, current tags on their plates, the sign was up on the claim, and they were just having a grand old time finding pretty good gold. And they got approached by 2 armed LEOs, law enforcement officers with the United States Forest Service. They walked down this little trail and came on the creek and found our members mining there. They didn't identify themselves. The first thing out of their mouth was, "Who are you guys? We need to see your ID. We need to know who is in our forest." No kidding. That's what they said. Our forest. Not the public's forest, their forest. So the man and his wife basically said, yes, okay, we have ID. He pulled out his ID, showed it to one of the LEOs. The woman pulled out an AMRA card, and because they were a second-year member, she had her old card and it was expired. And the LEO said, this card is expired. We need to make sure that you're not claim jumping. Now let me explain something here. This is a true story. First of all, the USFS does not enforce any type of mining claim disputes or law or anything. It's entirely a civil matter. Even the BLM does not enforce mining claim law, right? Well, it's between, if I'm the mining claim owner and I catch him mining on the claim that I own, it's between him and I. It's my responsibility to contact the local sheriff and to prove that I'm the mining claim owner and that he's claim jumping. That's just the way that it is. That's the facts. So the USFS has zero authority to even request any type of ID or question who is on that mining claim. It's none of their damn business. So anyway, so she gets a little bit, nervous, and they're like, well, this is expired. And she says, well, I have my new card in the truck. So they literally escorted this, late 60s woman to her truck, telling her to keep her hands in plain sight, don't make any sudden moves. And she gets to her truck, produces the current AMRA ID, and they seem satisfied. So they go back to the creek. The guy's running a sluice box downstream from there. They holler at him, and they say, bring us up your ID. And this gentleman, like I say, he's hung out with me a little bit, is a little more obstinate, said, I don't need to give you any ID. I'm protected under the Fourth Amendment. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're interrupting my mining operation, and you have no right to do this. The female law enforcement officer stomps down the creek at him and demands to see ID again. Now, granted, he's sitting in the creek just pitching small rocks behind him, away from the woman, and she says, give me your ID. And he says, I don't have to give you my ID. So at that point, she pulls that taser off of her hip, points it directly at him, and says, give me your ID now. You think we got a problem here, folks? Yeah. Johnny and I were mining that day, and when we got back to the house, I had 2 emails. One from each one of the couple and one from the other guy. And they were angry, as I can't blame them. So what we did is we opened up an investigation, and some of us have a background in doing investigations, and so we looked into this over the last 5 or 6 months. We only went back about 5 months, 6 months maybe at the most. And there's more incidents that we have obtained statements on than you can count on 2 hands of egregious violations where people, I'll give you an example, I'll give you 2 examples. Guy owns a piece of private property out of Yosemite. And it's an island. It's out in the middle of nowhere. No power, no nothing. He runs cows out there. It's 420 acres. Well, the rim fire closed this entire area off. The Forest Service called him and said, hey, look, your cows got out. Here's a special use permit. Go out there and see if you can get your cows. Guy goes, okay. So he has the special use permit in hand, gets in his truck with his young son, and then 2 adult witnesses and friends behind him, and throws a rifle in the back because there's cougars. Johnny and I saw one just out there just a couple weeks ago. So the rifle's in the back, unloaded, it's properly stored, etc., and he drives out there. He goes through the closed area. He gets pulled over by one of these 3 LEOs, and she goes, what are you doing out here? He's like, you guys called me, I got to go check on my cows, I guess they got out. And she's like, well, you can't be out here. He says, look, I got a special use permit. I have a fundamental right to go out here. You guys called me. And she's like, I don't care about the permit. You're out here hunting in a no hunting zone, and I'm going to cite you for it. She cited this guy for hunting in a closed hunting zone. Now, do you see a problem here? That's just another example. I'll give you, and we're working with the gentleman, I actually talked to him yesterday. That case is dismissed, but it just shows you, I mean, it's just egregious. Here's another example, is you got 4 trucks driving up a very well-maintained public road. They've all got their dogs in the back. Each truck does. They're going to go up and run their dogs. And an LEO comes down the road at them and turns his truck sideways and effectively blocks the entire road. Stops all 4 trucks. Guy gets out, the LEO, walks up to the lead truck, says, I need to see your ID. Get out of the truck. So all of these guys get out of their truck, and then he proceeds to just search the vehicle. Do you have any weapons or drugs? No? Well, I'm going to search your vehicle. Do you see a problem here? Yeah. It's not 1, it's not 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's more than I can count on 2 hands. I'm not disclosing the number because they'll find out how many we have eventually, trust me. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is for some reason we have a fundamental problem here. First of all, the Fourth Amendment protects you against unwarranted searches and seizures. And it's even been challenged in the Supreme Court in Terry versus Ohio. There's a thing called probable cause. So there's also a USFS Code of Conduct that states clearly that the LEOs have to have probable cause. Now, what's probable cause? That means that they have to believe that you've committed a crime, are committing a crime, or in the process of committing a crime that they're witness to. Did I cover all the bases there, Paul? Short of that, then they can't just come up and say, give me your damn ID and step away from your vehicle, I'm going to search it. That's specifically what the Fourth Amendment was written to protect us against. So the example that I'm giving you here is something that we are going to talk about in depth and provide you guys with these rights when we create this publication, which is going to be on this website.
Go back. Go back. Go back to.
I'm trying.
Your other reverse.
Yeah, my other reverse. So, all of this opposition, this isn't about fish. Joe's going to talk about that just in a few minutes. It never has been. It's not about protecting bears, it's just the guys. That's the excuse that they use. It's not about protecting us from our own dangers. I just dealt with the Forest Service yesterday. That we've got 2 mining claim owners out of Fresno that they won't give them a key to a gate that they just put up. And they have to drive 40 minutes with a Jeep to access their mining claim. And they said that they won't give us a key, or wouldn't give them a key, natural resources. We made a phone call to them yesterday and explained what is going to happen if they don't get a key. These 2 people are now picking their key up Monday.
Nice.
This isn't about mercury. And we're going to talk about mercury. We're going to talk about, Joe is actually going to talk about that too. It's not about open spaces. It's about a fundamental ideology to transform America. And that's really what we're seeing here with these regulatory agencies. By the way, those were the boulders that they dumped on one of our claims up in the South Motherlode. And about 3 weeks later, after we informed, the boulders they dumped were to block all of the camping areas. And we made a couple of phone calls and informed them that they were in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, because we have retired military veterans that are disabled. 3 weeks later, they went and took those rocks right back up and put them in the truck and hauled them away. So, what this really is, guys, I don't want you to think that this is entirely something that AMRA is doing, because all of these groups have done this as well. It's not just us. I'm only giving you the examples that I know of because it's things that we've done. So please don't just give us credit. I know the new 49ers have done some pretty remarkable things there too. It's really about corruption. The single most dangerous entity on this board, which we've got BLM, USFS, California Water Board, Fish and Game, is the one in the lower right-hand corner, and that's the EPA. That's in my opinion. You know they're threatening to put me in prison. Who's this lady?
Oh, yeah.
This is Miss Weinstein. And you see the little logo in the upper right-hand corner that we put in there? That's the Sierra Fund. Who are they?
Some really scary people.
I'm sure they're really nice people. The Sierra Fund is a far-left radical environmental group that is funded predominantly by George Soros, who, I'm just going to say it, is probably one of the most evil men on planet Earth. You hear me, George? He is an avowed communist, and he's also a mega billionaire. He funds over 200 radical environmental agencies in the United States. And they sue and settle. And they're the ones taking your taxpayer money, and then in turn give it to a political party to try to pass more laws against your rights. So, we ran across this thing. Somebody sent me this, and I wish I could give them credit, but I get so many emails I can't remember. Dale did. Okay. Dale from East Bay. This is an article that is really cool. It's from the year 2000, and I talked to Claudia Wise about that this morning. is this is from the EPA's website. And you know how the EPA is saying how much suction dredging kills fish and it, flowers mercury, and it's just the worst thing ever since the, nuclear bomb. In this article right here, they're actually looking for gold dredgers to go out into the rivers in the year 2000 and dredge the mercury because they know it cleans the streams. Oops. So we wanted to share that, and we have saved this because I'm sure the EPA right now, as we know our opposition and regulatory agencies are listening here today, they're probably going to go and try to scrub that, but we've saved that for all of you guys to read. Do you think that's a little hypocrisy?
A little.
Let me give you another example of hypocrisy. Ms. Feinstein, we can't dredge here in California, right? So, the suction dredgers in California used to have to buy a permit. It was like $43. And there were thousands and thousands that got purchased every single year. And provided a lot of income to the state. BLM, DFG, everybody, mining claims, all this money was coming in. When they did the moratorium, the revenues all went down. And there's one entity that actually gets to legally dredge in the state of California. And as a matter of fact, that lady that we just showed up on the screen there has given them $6 million of your taxpayer money to operate a giant cutter dredge to go and dredge under the guise of removing mercury from the rivers. And that's the Sierra Fund. Did you know that the Sierra Fund now is the largest gold company in the state of California? Pretty cool, huh? That's with your taxpayer money. Now, a cutter dredge only removes 84% of the mercury from the river. A suction dredge removes 98%. Plus, they get revenue and permits. And all the local economies get the money that the miners spend in the local economies. Do you see the hypocrisy here? If you're politically aligned with them, you get a dredge. If you're not, they just ban you.
Wasn't it a Canadian company?
What, Sierra Fund?
No, that was doing the dredging?
That they hired to dredge.
I don't know, but I do know that they said that they, because they were removing mercury, not gold, and they said originally that they were going to throw the gold back because it wasn't a pollutant. Sure. Okay. This is something that's 2 days ago, and I want to kind of continue here. This is devastational, guys, and I can tell you that the opposition to the small minor and public land use people that are listening here today are applauding this decision. This was a unanimous decision 2 days ago that was announced by the Supreme Court. Regulatory agencies now do not have to open up for public comment when they want to make changes to the regulations. Do you think that's wrong? I agree. The problem is, guys, is that Congress has ceded most of their authority and power to these regulatory agencies. So these agencies have now become lawmakers. And now that you've got the Supreme Court saying, no, you don't even have to ask the public's permission anymore, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the EPA is going to do now?
Run them up.
They're just going to shut everything down.
You're right, but there's a solution. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. So what now? What do? We're going to talk about that in this last segment. We've got a pretty good solution. This guy was really, truly an idol of mine and a mentor. And he was one hell of a tough man. And what we're seeing here, for those listening, is a picture of Jerry Hobbs. Is a lot of people looked at Jerry as a savior. Jerry wasn't a savior, although he really operated like one. The problem is Jerry couldn't do it on his own. And that's what we face here, is there's a lot of us really trying to do good things. But if you're looking for the new 49ers to save you, like I did 6 years ago, or PLP, or AMRA, or WMA, guys, they can't save us. No one entity, or one group, or one person, or one leader can. It takes a concerted effort from everyone. That's where Jerry, I know, would be very proud of this meeting here. I guarantee you that he would, and I'm sure he's probably out mining in the big giant placer in the sky and ignoring us right now. But if Jerry could look down on us, I know that he would really greatly approve of this.
Probably dredging.
Yeah, he's dredging. He's running a big 10-inch somewhere. We must engage in opposition to this with the people, and I know I beat you up on that this morning, but it's true, guys. We do this or we lose it. This is Emma. This is my favorite little prospector. Emma is the granddaughter of one of our members. Cute as a button, isn't she? Emma likes to dig in the dirt, and she likes to find gold, she likes people, and she loves being in the outdoors. I'm going to ask you this last question, and then we'll go to break here. What is she going to get 10 years from now? What does this look like for her kids unless we stop it now?